I had just gotten home on Friday, eager for the weekend to start. My wife Lisa greeted me, but there was no usual smile or kiss. Instead, she looked nervous and determined. Something was clearly off. I asked about the kids, noting that since it was Friday, they should be home. She told me they were at her mom's until Monday, and with urgency, she said she needed to talk. Lisa said she had something important to share, admitting it might be hard for me to understand. She reassured me it wasn't anything bad, but might be tough to grasp. She asked me to try to understand, especially if I loved her. I agreed, trying to keep an open mind. She thanked me and said it was something she'd been thinking about for a long time, something that might sound strange at first. Then she dropped the bomb she wanted to be intimate with other people. I laughed at first, but she was dead serious. I asked if she was planning to leave me, but she insisted she loved me and would never do that. She emphasized that this was something she felt she needed to do. As she explained her desire to explore outside our marriage, my shock turned to anger. I expressed my disbelief and disagreement. She insisted she was going to do it regardless of my feelings, clarifying that she had never cheated on me and didn't plan to. She promised to be safe and not deny me anything in our bed. But I wasn't fully present in the conversation, and she noticed my mind drifting. Lisa stressed that this had nothing to do with us as a couple and was a personal need she had to fulfill. Despite her pause, I remained motionless and silent. I just sat there, staring blankly. My wife of 17 years had just shattered my world and expected me to accept it. Lisa explained that she was at a point in life where she felt this was necessary. She reminded me that she had been a virgin when we married and had never known another man. She wanted to explore physical intimacy beyond our marriage, insisting it was only about the physical aspect, not love. I continued to stare, unable to speak. The revelation that my wife wanted to be with other men, not just one but several, was deeply unsettling. The most shocking part was that she expected me to be okay with it. Lisa urged me to say something, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I stood up and headed upstairs to the bedroom, the room that had been ours. Now it felt meaningless to me. I felt sick and broken, numb to everything. In a matter of minutes, she had managed to destroy our marriage. I sat on the bed trying to process everything. I knew I had to leave the house and distance myself from my wife, a wife who was on the verge of betraying me and was determined to go through with it no matter what. I had been a marathon runner in college, and running or taking long walks always helped me clear my head. I decided to walk far. I changed out of my suit into comfortable jeans, a shirt, and my running shoes. Grabbing my wallet, a cap, and sunglasses, I headed downstairs. Lisa was still seated in the same spot where she had confessed her intentions. I paused for a moment looking at her. She felt like a stranger to me. Glancing back at her, my hand on the doorknob, I asked, "Who are you?" Then I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. As I moved forward, her words were drowned out. I was already past the neighbor's house when she called for me to come back and talk. She caught up, running alongside me until she ran out of breath. She kept pleading, saying we needed to talk and that she loved me. She insisted she wasn't doing this to hurt me, and emphasized that there was still an us. She professed her love and begged me to come back. Eventually, she gave up. I think she collapsed on the sidewalk, but I didn't look back to check. I couldn't bear to see her. She couldn't keep up with my pace. I could still run a marathon in under 3 hours without breaking a sweat. Soon I was several blocks away and she was nowhere in sight. Turning the corner, I picked up the pace, going into overdrive. I was cruising and it felt like I could keep running forever. Lisa and I first crossed paths back in college. She was handing out water cups to runners in a 10K event. I ended up winning that race, and later, I joked that my victory was fueled by my need to find her before she disappeared into the crowd. I managed to catch her just in time, and we clicked instantly. She was an assistant to the dean of the business school. Even though she hadn't finished her degree, her eye for detail and excellent writing skills had landed her a prominent job. Meanwhile, I was knee-deep in my graduate studies in electronics and computer science. We dated for 6 months before our relationship became physical, and it was incredible. Despite her lack of experience, she was naturally enthusiastic. There were signs she enjoyed it, even if she didn't completely embrace it. We tied the knot a few months after I graduated, just 14 months after we met. I was 26, and Lisa was 27, making it notable that she was still a virgin at that age. Our children, Emily and Jake, came along in the 9th and 10th years of our marriage, and life was good. Lisa continued working for the dean, while I took a job as a computer systems engineer at Tech Innovations, a company working on advanced military tech. My boss, Bill Schuler, a 60-something bachelor with a relentless work ethic, wasn't just my employer but also a close friend. Lisa and I had been married for about 17 years, and I had always thought our marriage was solid. But lately, Lisa seemed to feel differently. Over the past few months, she had grown distant and occasionally short-tempered, especially with me, and less so with the kids. This led to some heated arguments. While I could handle her being irritable with me, I couldn't stand it when she was short with the children. I wondered if she might be experiencing menopause. I wasn't an expert on female biology, but I knew a little. I had planned to look into it more, but never got around to it. Now, as I walked, I regretted not doing so. Lisa explained to her sister Amanda that she didn't know where I had gone. She mentioned that I had left the house around 5:00 p.m. on Friday and hadn't been seen since. Frantic, Lisa sought Amanda's guidance, expressing worry about my whereabouts and asking for help. Amanda Mason could have been Lisa's twin. They were often mistaken for sisters. Both had flowing red hair, curvaceous figures, and adorable freckles. Amanda was slightly taller at 57, but otherwise they were nearly identical. However, Amanda's personality was different. She was tough-minded, slow to speak, and valued her independence. Still single at 40, Amanda wasn't gay, she just liked her independence. Amanda expressed surprise at my behavior. Lisa shared that we had a disagreement and I had stormed out without a word. Concerned, Amanda reassured Lisa that I would be found, but wanted to know the details of our argument. Lisa responded vaguely, saying it was personal and shouldn't have led me to leave. Amanda, a psychologist, commented on the situation, expressing her intent to learn more once they found me. She noted that Lisa had waited too long to call, hinting at sarcasm despite their good relationship. Amanda always thought Lisa was a bit scatterbrained. Amanda then asked for details about my departure, which direction I headed, what I was wearing, and if I had taken a coat or my car. Lisa provided the information I was headed east toward Crestview, wearing a dark green t-shirt, jeans, and a Cubs baseball cap. She mentioned that I hadn't taken a coat or my car and was worried about the freezing weather. Amanda acknowledged the urgency and instructed Lisa to stay home and keep the phone close in case I called. She assured Lisa that she had her cell phone and would keep her updated as she set out to search for me. The roads were icy, so Amanda drove cautiously. 10 miles out of town, her cell phone rang, prompting her to pull over to answer. She learned that I was in Crestview and, concerned, decided to head there immediately. Crestview was a tiny town with few residents, and I found myself indifferent to the place, just grateful for a hot meal and warmth. The steel door at the end of the hall clanged open. Although I couldn't see who was coming, the footsteps signaled someone approaching. As the only visitor, it had to be for me. When Amanda arrived, she immediately questioned me, asking if I was proud of myself. I asked if Lisa had called her, and Amanda confirmed, revealing that she had already been on the road searching for me. Lisa voiced her concerns about my actions, highlighting that I had children and a worried wife at home. I sarcastically replied that while the kids might be worried, Lisa certainly wouldn't be. Amanda acknowledged Lisa's lack of details, only mentioning a fight and my sudden departure. I then explained the real issue, revealing Lisa's intention to have relationships with other men regardless of my feelings. Amanda's face remained stoic as I detailed Lisa's plans. The guard opened my cell door with a sympathetic expression, and we walked to the front receiving area. I was informed that I'd been bailed out but needed to return by Friday to enter a plea. The officer advised me to pay the fine and settle the damages from the bar fight, which included broken chairs, a damaged table, and a shattered mirror. I agreed, understanding the rationale behind his advice. During the long drive back, Amanda probed me about the bar fight. After I recounted my story, she was silent for a while, then began her analysis. As my sister and a psychologist, she felt compelled to help. She mentioned that women go through changes that men can't always comprehend, often driven by hormonal shifts that induce fear and insecurity. I told Amanda that I wasn't naive, emphasizing that not all women resort to such actions to fix their issues. I spoke firmly, asserting my viewpoint. Amanda countered with statistics, noting that 60 of men and 40 of women engage in extramarital affairs, contributing to the high divorce rate. She suggested that Lisa might be going through such a phase and needed my support. As I began to respond, she raised her hands to stop me. She clarified that she wasn't suggesting I allow Lisa to pursue other men. Instead, she urged me to communicate with her, hold her hand, and support her through this challenging period. Amanda stressed that Lisa needed my strength and understanding. I expressed my willingness to help Lisa on the condition that if she ever got involved with another man, our relationship would end without exception. I made it clear that if she disrespected me that way, I would ensure there were serious consequences for both her and her lover. Amanda fell silent again, and I felt uneasy, interpreting her quietness as judgment. The conversation then shifted to lighter topics. Amanda acknowledged my accomplishment of walking 100 miles in 2 days. I downplayed it, saying it was something I could do and needed the time for introspection, dismissing it as nothing significant. Amanda pointed out that it was a remarkable feat, especially given the weather and road conditions. "What were you thinking?" she asked, referring to my decision to walk in such harsh conditions. But I took her words to mean my thoughts about Lisa, myself, and our marriage. Christmas was 3 weeks away, and it was shaping up to be quite the holiday. What awaited me under the Yetobaputub tree? Perhaps a reminder of someone else's presence. I felt furious and couldn't bring myself to go home just yet. I instructed Amanda to drop me at Tech Innovations, explaining that it was Sunday and I needed to be alone for a while. I suggested she talk to Lisa tomorrow and explain my need for solitude. Amanda understood and mentioned she would talk to Lisa, who was quite worried about me. She speculated that Lisa might reconsider her plans now that she knew my feelings. I assured Amanda that I wouldn't do anything rash and just needed more time to think. After dropping me off, I watched Amanda drive away before entering my office. Although she believed Lisa might postpone her plans, I couldn't shake the concern that she might have already acted on them. Reflecting on the loss of trust in my wife, I saw it as a significant and troubling issue. Meanwhile, back at home, Amanda shrugged off her coat without a greeting and confronted Lisa. "He's afraid he's lost you," Amanda stated. Lisa dismissed the notion, insisting she had told me I would never lose her. Amanda challenged her, emphasizing that when she mentioned being with other men, any man would feel as I did. Lisa, looking troubled, asked if I had told Amanda everything. Amanda confirmed, stating that she was my sister and that secrets like that couldn't be kept for long. Lisa defended her desire to explore, framing it as something she had always wanted to experience and considered acceptable. Amanda issued a stern warning, stating that if Lisa went through with it, she would lose me, our children, and most of the friends and relatives who loved her. She emphasized the seriousness of the situation, questioning if Lisa understood the consequences. Lisa couldn't meet Amanda's eyes as she explained her need, hoping Amanda would understand. She revealed that it had consumed her thoughts for a long time, expressing uncertainty about being able to control herself. Lisa emphasized that I had always understood her and needed me to do so again. Lisa admitted she couldn't live without me, but wasn't sure she could resist acting on her desires with someone else, acknowledging the real risk of cheating. She confessed that the overpowering urge inside her was difficult to control. Amanda, trying to be supportive, shared that although she loved men and wasn't gay, she chose not to marry because she knew she couldn't stay faithful to one man. She warned Lisa about the potential fallout of her actions, emphasizing that she could lose everything if she didn't change her ways soon. Lisa reluctantly agreed that Amanda might be right and started to cry. Amanda comforted her, assuring her that everything would be all right. She offered to stay with Lisa for the night and promised to be there the next day when I returned, ready to mediate. Amanda expressed gratitude for Lisa's acknowledgement and advised her to abandon the idea of being with other men. She stressed the importance of convincing me that I had nothing to fear, recognizing it as a difficult task. Lisa nodded, allowing herself a small smile, though Amanda missed the slight narrowing of her eyes. Realizing that getting my approval was unrealistic, Lisa faced a decision: either abandon her plans or try to persuade me otherwise. These were her only options, but her priority was winning me back as her love for me remained true. For the first time since my abrupt departure, Lisa felt a sense of clarity. She would soon find out what to do. The next morning, I woke up on the office couch feeling sore. The long walk and the uncomfortable sleeping conditions had taken a toll. While I was used to running marathons, long endurance walks were rare for me, especially in the last decade. Yet, I was somewhat proud that I hadn't lost my touch knot yet. I parked in front of the house a little after 1,000 a.m., knowing Emily and Jake would be at school. Lisa opened the door, embracing me tightly, her relief at my return evident. She expressed gratitude that I had come back, assuring me she was no longer worried and asking me to forget everything she had said earlier. She admitted to being foolish and mentioned talking to Amanda, who helped her understand. I remained cautious, my suspicion lingering as she seemed to have abandoned something she insisted on just a few days prior. I acknowledged her statement with a guarded response, hoping she meant it. Entering the kitchen, I saw Amanda sitting at the table, sipping tea. I greeted her and asked if she was there to support Lisa's story. Amanda confirmed that they had talked extensively and expressed hope that we could get through this, describing it as a momentary lapse. Despite the reassurances, something felt off, and I found myself in a predicament, lacking trust in my wife. I nodded, hesitant to take anything for granted despite Amanda's insight. She hadn't witnessed or heard Lisa like I had during our confrontation on Friday. Over the next few days, Lisa worked hard to reassure me. I was almost starting to believe Amanda's explanation of a temporary lapse. Then came Thursday. A peculiar phone call with background noises caught my attention. I didn't mention it to Lisa, but deciphered the words, "Call cell, call my cell." Upstairs, I found her cell on the dresser, checked the call history, noted 6 unknown numbers, and felt a surge of determination. With my military background, I knew uncovering the identities behind those numbers would be easy, albeit illegal. But my boss had used his clearance for a similar situation a year ago. Now it was my turn. This wasn't a no-fault state. If I caught her with evidence, she was mine. Feeling confident that night, our lovemaking was more than good. Lisa had certainly turned things around in the past 6 days. I hoped I wouldn't have to give it up anytime soon. Arriving early at the lab, I aimed to catch Tim before he headed into the field. Tim, our systems installer and field technician, shared a camaraderie with me fueled by numerous beers as we cheered for our alma mater, Ohio State. I called out to Tim as he passed by, asking if he had a minute. He stopped on his way out and agreed to come into my office. Once inside, Tim settled into a chair and I took a seat beside him. I brought up the incident from last year when Mr. Peters had him do some snooping. Tim became suddenly attentive, expressing concern about my involvement in a similar matter. I explained that I had reasons to be worried. Amanda, meanwhile, shrugged off her coat without a greeting and confronted Lisa at home. "Hez scared he's lost you," Amanda stated. Lisa dismissed the notion, insisting she had assured me I would never lose her. Amanda challenged her, emphasizing that when she mentioned being with other men, any man would feel as I did. Lisa, looking troubled, asked if I had told Amanda everything. Amanda confirmed, stating that as my sister, secrets like that couldn't be kept for long. Lisa defended her desire to explore, framing it as something she had always wanted to experience and saw as acceptable. Amanda issued a stern warning, stating that if Lisa went through with it, she would lose me, our children, and most of the friends and relatives who cared about her. She emphasized the seriousness of the situation, questioning if Lisa understood the consequences. Lisa couldn't meet Amanda's eyes as she explained her need, hoping Amanda would understand. She revealed that it had consumed her thoughts for a long time, expressing uncertainty about being able to control herself. Lisa emphasized that I had always understood her and needed me to do so again. I asked him if he could assist me. He agreed but emphasized the risks, urging me to be absolutely certain about my suspicions. I nodded, assuring him I'd contact him if I found anything, and requested confidentiality. He agreed and suggested I do some spot checking over the next month and then report back. I handed him several phone numbers from Lisa's cell, admitting I didn't recognize them, but suspected they might be important. Tim acknowledged it was a good starting point, and noted it wasn't illegal if my name was on the account, which I confirmed. Reflecting on Lisa's actions, I realized she had underestimated my tech skills and connections. If she intended to cheat, her chances of escaping detection were slim unless she could completely erase my suspicions. It seemed like a risky strategy, but perhaps her only option. Life at home settled into a facade of normalcy with happy kids, a seemingly content Lisa, and me pretending to be happy. A week later, Tim asked to meet at our usual spot and revealed he had checked out the numbers, obtained addresses, and caught Lisa visiting 2 of them on successive days. He had photos, videos, and audio evidence. I was informed that my wife was indeed cheating. I responded calmly, requesting more evidence, especially additional video footage. I had plans to take her down along with her lovers. Tim expressed concern, suggesting Lisa might be setting me up, but I assured him I wouldn't use the evidence in court and had another plan. Tim, enjoying the espionage, agreed to gather more evidence. After 3 weeks armed with extensive information about the individuals involved, I marveled at the depth of Tim's investigation. It was now a matter of choosing the right time and battleground. I needed to talk with Amanda. We reviewed the evidence in her office. She expressed disbelief and irritation, acknowledging that Lisa had even fooled her. Reflecting on the situation, I shared my frustration about feeling deceived and disrespected. Amanda advised against seeking revenge, emphasizing it would only eat at me and our kids would eventually judge both of us. Despite my torment, I acknowledged her wisdom and decided overt revenge against Lisa was off the table. However, I considered retaliating against her lovers, believing that if done right, it would make her incredibly unpopular quickly. Lisa had 5 lovers, not 6. The extra number was a wrong dial. 4 of her affairs were with married men, all with young children. 2 of her lovers had careers I could easily ruin. One was a state politician, the other a priest. Lisa had ventured into dangerous territory and her desires had led her astray. My sister's choice to remain single suddenly made sense. Lisa would have been better off doing the same. My primary concern was for the children of the cheaters and, of course, my own. My kids would stay with me, there would be no compromise. Lisa would have visitation rights, but no boyfriends could come near them. Otherwise, I would grant her the house but claim everything else, relocating myself and the children to a comfortable 3-bedroom condo near their new school. It was time to act. A tech-savvy friend helped me blur Lisa's face in 5 incriminating videos and created copies for the spouses of her lovers. 2 additional copies were sent to a TV station to expose the priest. I considered legal action, but that would leave Lisa vulnerable in court, and I needed to protect her for the children's sake. I was partly following Amanda's advice. It occurred to me that technology might one day put an end to extramarital affairs. Exposing infidelity was becoming too easy. On D-Day, I arrived at work early, ready and prepared. 1 double click and 4 husbands would likely become ex-husbands, while another would find himself reassigned to a remote monastery. I double-clicked, and chaos was set in motion. I smiled, feeling like Joshua at the walls of Jericho, anticipating their fall. I informed my boss I was taking the rest of the day off and headed home. I wondered how long it would take for Lisa to hear the news, or if she would at all. Just in case, I loaded one of the videos into the player and turned on the TV. One press of a button, and she would see herself in explicit clips, signaling the end of many things, including our marriage. Arriving home, I found Lisa in the kitchen, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing. I confronted her, showing her the videos. Her face paled as she watched, realizing the gravity of her actions. She tried to explain, but I cut her off, stating it was too late for excuses. I informed her that our marriage was over and I was taking the kids. The fallout was immediate. The priest was reassigned, the politician's career was in shambles, and the other men faced the wrath of their spouses. Lisa was left to deal with the consequences of her actions, alone and shunned. I moved into the condo with my kids, determined to rebuild our lives. It wasn't easy, but we found a new normal. The pain of betrayal lingered, but I focused on my children and our future. Lisa's actions had torn our family apart, but I was resolved to put the pieces back together. I went upstairs for a nap, but suddenly had an idea. I rushed back to the phone, grabbed a notepad, and scribbled a note play video. An hour later, I heard Lisa's car in the garage. Hiding at the top of the stairs, I watched her pause in front of the TV, reading the note. She hesitated, then pressed play. Even though I couldn't see the video, I felt her anxiety. Less than a minute into it, she fainted. The video kept playing. I went downstairs and turned off the machine. She came to about half an hour later. I sat on the couch, waiting for her to fully regain consciousness. When she saw me, she groggily asked if I hated her. I replied yes, stating there was no chance for reconciliation. I offered her the house and allowed the kids to live with her, but I claimed everything else: stocks, bonds, savings. I told her she could keep some dignity if she didn't fight me, but warned I would destroy her if she resisted. Expressing regret, Lisa said she felt compelled to act on her desires. Despite her apology, I deemed her actions unforgivable and warned her that the consequences had finally caught up with her. Her life was falling apart, and I advised her not to answer her cell anytime soon. Expecting she wouldn't be welcome around the kids, I informed her that I had already leased a place and that Amanda would take the children there after school. Although she would have visitation rights, I made it clear that none of her male friends were welcome. She nodded in understanding. To her credit, she hadn't started crying or making excuses, though I anticipated the tears would come about 2 minutes after I left. As I proceeded to leave, I reflected on the fallout. All the married individuals involved were divorced by their spouses and faced severe repercussions. The priest was reassigned, though I never found out where. One of Lisa's lovers ended up selling used cars. Lisa still worked for the dean and saw the children regularly. It was tough helping them understand why Mommy no longer lived with us, but we managed. Occasionally, Lisa would date some office friends set her up with, but that was just speculation. I knew for a fact that the idea of promiscuity no longer appealed to her. She would be with us at Christmas. She was still family, but she acknowledged she had made a huge mistake and had the decency not to push it with me. Lovemaking can be such a destroyer. Jessica and I had been married for 4 years, having dated for 2 before tying the knot. Although we were still relatively new to marriage, our relationship seemed strong, with no signs of trouble. Our love was genuine, and we built a foundation of trust during our courtship. I was 30 and she was 26. The incident that exposed my wife's infidelity happened on July 4th during a party organized by her friend. Let me provide some context before discussing the incident itself. About a week before July 4th, Jessica mentioned her friend's celebration. We usually had a reliable babysitter for our 3-year-old and informed the sitter in advance about our needs. For this specific event, Jessica told me she had contacted the babysitter, who said her schedule was packed and she couldn't make it. I was disappointed because spending time with my wife had become rarer since we had our baby. Despite my reservations about her friend, Jessica expressed a strong desire to attend the event and suggested I stay home with our child while she went to her friend's party. Wanting her to have fun, I agreed, saying I'd take care of our child at home. Here's the twist: Jessica knew I wasn't a big fan of her friend, who was still single, and 3 years younger, a bit more carefree. I didn't want to come across as controlling, but I advised her to be cautious, as her friend might not be the best influence. On the morning of July 4th, I decided to call the babysitter myself. Normally, Jessica handled these arrangements, and I had to find the sitter's number on her phone. I thought offering the babysitter a higher hourly rate might change her mind. If it worked out, I planned to surprise Jessica by letting her know we could attend the event together after all. I wanted to share the news once I had the babysitter situation sorted out, enjoying the satisfaction of pulling off a last-minute miracle. Things started to unravel when I called the babysitter and asked her to reconsider sitting for my son that evening. Even though she had initially declined, she appeared surprised when I used the word reconsider, and told me it was the first time she had been asked about that day. Her surprise caught me off guard, so I asked if she remembered Jessica calling her to arrange the evening a week earlier. She confirmed that she hadn't received any such call. She hadn't received any call from my wife. I quickly improvised, telling her that my wife had actually called a family member instead. It became clear that my wife had lied for some reason, though I couldn't figure out why. Concerned, I arranged for the sitter to come to our house at 1:00 p.m. Jessica had mentioned she would be leaving around 8:00 p.m. for the event. Before ending the call with the sitter, I made sure to tell her not to inform my wife about her coming over. I explained that I wanted to surprise my wife and keep the outing I had planned a secret. I almost stumbled over my words when the sitter reminded me that I had mentioned my wife's earlier attempt to secure the date and time. I managed to cover it up by saying that we both thought the date night might have been canceled, but since she was on board, it would still be a nice surprise. As planned, my wife left around 8:00 p.m. I patiently waited for the sitter, who arrived on time. Once she was there, I headed to the party my wife had mentioned. Honestly, I suspected she might not show up and go somewhere else instead, but to my surprise, she was indeed at the party. Her friend greeted me upon arrival, and seeing me there surprised her. She quickly called my wife over. It's an understatement to say Jessica was just shocked. Her reaction was more like utter disbelief. It had only been around 3 hours since my wife left home, but she already seemed quite intoxicated. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her reception towards me was chilly. She repeatedly asked why I was there and who was taking care of our child. I reassured her that I had the babysitter situation under control and she shouldn't worry. I just wanted us to enjoy the evening together and watch the fireworks display. The party, held in a medium-sized setting with maybe 15-20 people, had a noticeable gender imbalance, more guys than girls, almost a 20-1 ratio. We managed to move past the awkward initial interaction, but that still didn't explain why my wife had been deceptive about the outing. The event seemed to revolve around game night, with a focus on truth or dare games. I overheard one of the guys suggesting they get back to the game. I decided it was time to catch up on what I had missed and joined a friendly group of guys who were quite talkative due to the flowing drinks and their outgoing personalities. Amidst the gathering, my wife's behavior became agitated and uneasy, and she expressed her desire to leave and go home. Her sudden request raised a red flag for me, suggesting that she was definitely hiding something. I assured her we could head home, but I asked for a moment to try some drinks since I had just arrived. I headed to the kitchen and struck up a conversation with one of the guys there. After introducing myself to a random guy, I inquired if he was enjoying the party. He introduced himself as well and confirmed that he was indeed having a good time. I told him I was interested in making a move on one of the girls at the party, but I wasn't sure who was available. I began pointing to different girls one by one, and he helped me identify who was already in a relationship and who seemed open to approach. Using this approach, I eventually pointed to my wife without revealing her identity to the stranger. I then asked him what he thought about her. He mentioned that my wife was attractive, but he warned me that she was off limits because she arrived with a guy he knew as a friend. I pretended to be interested and asked him to share more details about this guy. The stranger went on to give me information about my wife's affair partner, explaining that they had met at a concert and had been involved with each other since then. This revelation hit me hard. The timeline of when my wife attended the concert and met this guy matched up perfectly. This struck a chord because I was also present at that very same concert. What bothered me was the fact that I was with her most of the time during the event, except when she wanted to get some snacks and insisted on going alone. I recall it took her an unusually long time to return with her snacks, but I brushed it off, assuming there was a long line or she needed to use the restroom. This incident occurred about a month ago, and since then she has been frequently leaving the house and even had a trip out of town. This new revelation left me questioning everything. The stranger was boasting about my wife as if she were some kind of prize he had won for his friend. He kept on talking, sharing a few more details. He explained that he had come to the party to pursue my wife's friend. When he described her as a free spirit, I wasn't sure if my reaction was noticeable, but I couldn't fake it anymore. Just then, my wife's friend joined the conversation, possibly realizing that my questions were leading to the truth about my wife's affair. However, it was too late, and I could tell that she was also part of the deception. I excused myself from the conversation, but asked my wife's friend about my wife's whereabouts. She suggested checking the patio, and that's where I found my wife talking to the guy. It seemed like they were either having a heated discussion or she was trying to convince him of something. I approached them and introduced myself to the man who was involved with my wife. But before I could say anything to him, my wife hastily pulled me away, insisting that we should leave the party. I swatted her hand away in anger and told her she could leave because I wanted to have a talk with the man. I confronted him directly, introducing myself as her husband. I asked him straightforwardly if he knew my wife was married before getting involved with her. Considering I had already discovered the truth about their relationship, I used my somewhat imposing presence to my advantage. Honestly, I wasn't looking to fight him if he genuinely didn't know she was married. My little show of subtle aggression was meant to let my wife know that I had uncovered her infidelity and to unsettle the guy a bit. I repeated my question to him, making it clear that I didn't want to ruin the party by starting a brawl, but I needed to know if he was aware of my wife's marital status before getting involved with her. My wife was getting anxious and tried to hold me back while apologizing. The guy, seeing the bottle in my hand and realizing he was cornered on the patio with no support, fell for my act and started apologizing as well. He mentioned that he didn't intend to cause any trouble and that he had only started talking to my wife without knowing she was married. I inquired about the number of times they had been together, and he gave a response. I simply wished him a good night and walked away. I hopped in my car and drove back home. I told my wife that I wanted a divorce. I checked into a hotel where I'm writing down my story as a form of self-therapy. I'm feeling lost about what steps to take. This is my first experience with divorce, and I'm completely unfamiliar with co-parenting since I didn't grow up in a household like that. What I do know is that I can't bear the thought of seeing that woman, and this incident is making me sick.